Hi, this is Dave Bentley. You may know me as the guy behind the camera, or you may never have seen me before, but typically I'm behind the camera when Jim Rogers is filming, and we've done about 200 videos. Today, we're doing a video for one of my classes on turning antique tops. This is an antique top. I like to turn these at Christmas time and give them to family and friends. Sort of fun to do. But they come in different shapes and sizes. This is one I turned. I was trying to create one that would turn for a longer period of time, so I changed the configuration of it, made it a little more bottom heavy, and it spins for almost 5 minutes. Really fun. These tops consist of a handle, the body itself. There's a brass piece put in the center, a small brass rod that I bought at Ace Hardware. It comes as a long rod of about 12 inches, and I just cut a piece off to use. And at the very top, in this top section here, there's a wooden dowel that goes to the inside. And to not have to turn the dowel myself, I just went down to one of the local stores that sold hardwood dowels, and I bought some in order to use and just save time when I made it. So this is with the top that we're going to turn today. Starting with the handle, which I've already done because it's just spindle turning, I ended up getting a piece that was 1.5 by 1.5 and measured out a length of the handle that was 6.5 inches. And set up one side for waste on this side and one side for waste on this side. Strictly a spindle turning project. And while it was still square, I drilled a 1-inch hole through one side, a distance just about 1.25 inches from the end of what the handle would be. And then in the center of that, I drilled a hole that was slightly larger than 3/8 of an inch. It was a next drill up from 3/8. So I had something to put the dowel in, and it was loose enough so it would spin rather easily. I sanded these out and then turned it on the lathe round. And once it was turned round, then I shaped it. And there'll be some pictures in this presentation that'll show you how we did that. But I marked this, and I make this specific to my hand. This was one for me. And I put a thumb stop right toward the inside so I can put my fingers against it, especially when I'm pulling that cord for the top. And we'll try one of those tops so we can show you how it spins. Right now, the handle is done. I also turned a small handle for the rope that'll pull the top and get it spinning. And I used just a small piece of wood that was cut up. It was laying around in one of my bins at home. So I'll put these aside, and we can run through this a little fast. I'm just going to do some spindle turning around this and get it ready to shape. Now keep in mind that when we start working on the body of the actual top itself, the thing that's really important is where you put that brass rod at the bottom, because it has to be dead center. And where that rod at the very top goes, the dowel that goes at the center of the top, that has to be dead center. Two things that have to occur. Now this was a really nice top that we put together, but it had a flaw in it, and it still wobbles a tiny bit. And it wobbles because there's hardwood and hardwood side by side, and that hardwood is just offsets the weight just enough to make it wobble slightly. Still spins for a long period of time, but it has a slight wobble to it. So this piece of wood that we're using today is clear all the way through, and so we should get an even spin out of it. Let me take a few minutes and round this piece out. Yeah, this is olive wood, so as I'm turning it, olive wood turns very nice. It's a sweet wood to work with. right, that's nice and round. Now I'm going to get our parting tool, square out the ends, and then put a tenon on both sides, because we're going to use the tenon to put those holes in the center and try to make sure they're dead center. So let me get my parting tool, get these squared off, and then make the, and then we'll start putting the tenon on. All right, square up my tool rest, make sure I'm about center. Now we'll start squaring it up, and I also want to make sure this is on nice and, I always like to tighten this, I don't want that to come off. Still a large piece of wood. Let me put my face mask on. It's just a little messy. Just square it off. I want to get my ruler so I can measure the tenon, make sure it's the right size. Just going to take this left one down just a tad, and we should be ready to go. All right. All right, so we're there. I noticed a little crack forming on this side right here, and I think we can design that out. There's a little crack along this top, and we'll get rid of most of that, so we should be good. There's a tiny crack right here, and that'll come out as we start working on it and shaping the actual top itself. So let me get the chuck out, put it in the chuck, and then we'll start looking at drilling some of the holes. So we're going to set up for drilling our first hole. So I put a tenon on either side of the piece of wood that we're working on. I loaded a 3/8 inch drill, and I like the ones that have the pointed tip on it, so that they tend to go straighter for me, especially they start straight. I have the Jacobs chuck set. I have a 3/8 inch drill bit in with a point on it. We're ready to go in, drill the hole, and I'll take this to about 3/4 of the way, because some of this stuff will be scrapped toward the end, and I want to make sure I have enough room in there to put my dowel and get it squared away. And sometimes I can get those put in without even gluing them. So let's get ready to drill. I'll turn it on, and we'll start heading in. Now keep in mind, olive is very easy to drill. Oops. So we'll take this all the way in, right to about that point right there. I'm good. And we'll back it out. And our hole is drilled. All right. Now we'll turn everything around the other way and start actually shaping the actual top itself. We're going to try and make it a little more bottom heavy so it goes, so it'll turn for a longer period of time. And we've already drilled our hole for the dowel, so we're really in pretty good shape. So now we turn it around and start making our top. We're going to put our live center back in and bring it up to, as we start turning the actual top. We want to get this squared away. All right, so what I'm going to do is take my pencil. I'm going to use this top for a template. So I want to have my bottom essentially here. And when I start turning the bottom, when I get to the very bottom, I want a little flat portion right here where I'm putting the brass rod. And the reason it's flat is I want to make sure I mark it before I drill, and drill a short hole for the brass rod. And the top of the top is somewhere in here. So I'll mark those. And I'll probably could look at a configuration somewhat similar to this. But again, as you make these, you want to make it to the way that you want it to look. You know, this is your time to really design the piece that you're making. The color we can always add at a later date and time. So let me mark these, the top and the bottom. All right, so it's marked. My top is in here, and I want to have it start with a larger bottom and a smaller base. And when I turn the very top, I want a round portion left at the top that's round, that'll rest against the handle, that I can wax, and so it spins nice and easy. If you look at this one or all the tops that I've made, they all have a flat bottom right at the very top. And I tend to put wax on these so that when you're spinning them, they spin nice and smooth and just like a well-oiled gear in a car. So let me get I'm going to start with my bowl gouge, and we'll start turning everything down and get ready to make the top. I'm going to add one more line right about here. And from here, I'm going to start going down to 0.0, which is where and this will end up being waste in here. All right, I'm going to make some room at the top. Those noises that you heard, there were some little chunks of wood that had little cracks in them that came off as I started cutting them too close to the end of the crack. So we should be in pretty good shape now. I'm going to take my parting tool and take it in, go into the top with the parting tool. Let me put my mask on. I feel like I'm in a snowstorm sometimes. So now what I'm doing is just making a design. So we're doing beads and coves essentially. We've got the spindle cuts just about done. We're just going to do some final cuts. I'm going to get this, take the tip down a little bit more, and then we'll square it off and pull all this out of the way. And at the final one, the top and the flat portion that goes against the handle, that's in good shape, and we'll take a thin parting tool and then slow this down and then remove that. And but before we take this off, we want to get this ready, pull it back, and drill our final hole dead center to put our brass rod in. Let's do that final cut, get it down. All right. Let me get my parting tool. We'll get rid of that. I'm going to grab a thin parting tool. Let me just make sure this is still nice and tight, because we're going to rely on this to do that last little hole that we're going to drill. But I want to take this, this parting tool, drop this down just a tad. And we'll part this off so we have a nice flat bottom. All right, we're clear. just going to get a little bit of sandpaper and sand this flat. Let me get a few things out of my way. Now the drill that I have does not have a pinpoint end on it. So what I'm going to do is take a drill that's a tiny bit larger and just use that to use it as a start to my next drill. So I just want to make sure that we're dead center and I get something started that's very sharp initially before I do my drilling. So this is the smallest drill that I have, and it has a small, I don't think you can see it on the camera. Maybe on this camera you can see it. It has a very teeny tiny point on it. I'm just going to use that to just barely get it started, but I want a dead center, and this will help me center my next drill that doesn't have that pinpoint on it. All right. So we don't want to go in very far. We just want it very stable. I want this tight down. And we're going to approach it very slowly. All right, that's as far as I want to go. That puts it dead center, and I have a small starting hole, or a pilot hole, to use my next drill. Let me get the drills changed around and we'll drill out the bottom hole for the brass rod. All right. Let's drill this hole. All right, we don't have to go in very far. We have a short brass rod that goes in there. And let me grab a hammer real quick and we'll just hammer that in. Doesn't take much. And I have my aviation snips, and we'll cut this off rather short. Okay. It doesn't take much of a piece of brass rod. And before we walk away from this, I want to take a file, turn this on, and just file down that brass rod. Get rid of all the sharp points. And we'll just touch it with a little sandpaper. Nice and smooth. That's the way we want it. Now I'm going to cut this off, and we'll get it ready to take our last step, which is put the dowel in the top. All right, so we'll turn this down and then start parting off the top. All right, so this is the top. It's been parted. We have the brass rod in the bottom of it. And you remember the hole that we drilled earlier? There it is. Well, while we were away from the camera, I cut a dowel to fit inside that hole. And it fits in really quite tight. And I can push it in, and we'll probably take a hammer and just gently tap it in place. And you shouldn't even have to drill it or glue it in at this point. And maybe at some point in the future, if the wood ever dries a little bit or it comes out, then you can glue it back in. But there it is. It's essentially done. Our next step is to try it with the top. And it fits perfectly. Goes right to the top of the top. And now we have to mark a hole on the inside where that dowel is, dead center, and put a hole that's about 1/8 of an inch in diameter that'll hold our string. The string that I've been using looks like this. It's a polyester product. In order to fix the end, I take a match, and I do it outside, and I put a glove on, and I hold a match under it just to start melting it, and then take a leather glove and then push it together and make it a hard point, like you would on some of your old shoelaces. And do that on both ends. One where you put it through the handle, the hole in the handle, and then the other end will go through this. But this is the one that goes through your handle where you pull, that you knot up. And you can actually take the match, and once you create your knot, and use your match on that to strengthen it and cause it to melt together. Now we put it together. Well, the top is put together. We drill a hole in the dowel. That's in the top of the top. It fits nicely into the handle. Put the handle in, tied a knot, and now we're going to see if it spins. So let's give it a shot, and then we have another one that we'll try spinning too, an older one that we did recently. So you saw our tops. We had fun putting those together, and we have more fun even making them spin. And it depends on how you spin them and practice. This one today went for 2 minutes and 20 seconds, and I've had it go as long as almost 4 minutes. But they're great fun to put together. If you like this video, and if you want to see more of Jim's videos and mine, subscribe. And if you have any questions, just leave them for us online, and we'll get back to you. Take care. See you soon.